combining to intensify the UK's emerging cost of living crisis. In April, household fuel bills are set to rise even more as the energy price cap is raised. Our On the Money campaign to scrap the VAT on household energy bills is gaining momentum. Plus, in this hour, we're talking British retail, as reports suggest the soaring cost of living risks dragging down high street sales in 2022. We'll be discussing this with Graham Holbrook, the CEO and co-founder of Turtle Doves, which specialises in so-called slow fashion. It's a fascinating story of British design, manufacturing and commercial resilience. And for today's Money Talks interview, we welcome a big beast of commerce, Luke Johnson, the former chairman of Pizza Express and Channel 4 Television, co-founder and owner of Gale's Artisan Bakery. An in-depth interview. Luke Johnson outlines to me how both Channel 4 and the BBC should be reformed, while predicting the UK economy will outperform in 2022.
You know what, Liam? Despite the fear and the concern out there, I'm optimistic for 22. I think I can see a positive point at which restrictions will be lifted and the animal spirits of the entrepreneurs will be engaged again.
As ever, I want your views too, not least about those gas and electricity bills, because if it matters to you, it matters to us. Write to us on gbviews at gbnews.uk. We want to know about your experiences. We want you, our viewers and listeners, to be part of this show. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and you're on the money. Now, the UK is facing a cost of living crisis, as On the Money viewers are well aware. Here on your daily dose of economics, business and consumer news, we've been discussing inflation and the impact on living standards for a long time now. When we launched GB News last June, we said if it matters to you, it matters to us. Well, I know this cost of living crisis, and in particular the looming combination of rising prices, tax rises and spiralling energy bills matters to you a lot. Why do I know? Because over recent weeks and months, thousands of On the Money viewers and listeners have emailed gbviews at gbnews.uk to let me know. And that's why, on yesterday's On the Money, we launched a new GB News campaign. In April, three factors will come together to deliver a cost of living triple whammy, hitting living standards across Britain. And that could well cause a political backlash in May, when Boris Johnson's Conservatives face some tricky local elections. Inflation hit 5.2% in November, and price pressures have since intensified. The Bank of England says that by April, inflation could be at 6% or more, chipping away at living standards. On top of that, April sees the introduction of a slew of tax rises estimated to cost the average family around £300 a year. But the really big shock this April will be utility bills, with the energy price cap set to be lifted, allowing energy companies to charge more. The average household utility bill, £1,277 a year, just over £100 a month, is set to rise to around £2,000. That's almost £170 a month, reflecting higher wholesale gas prices, a massive increase that will hit many ordinary families hard. Inflation, tax rises, spiralling energy costs, there's your April triple whammy. And that's why, to help ease the strain a little, GB News is calling for VAT on energy bills to be scrapped, a move that's now possible because we're outside the European Union and back in control of our tax measures, a move which could be implemented overnight. It was only yesterday that we launched here on The Money our Scrap the VAT campaign, and now Labour has said it will today pressure government on this precise issue, pressing for a vote to remove VAT on fuel bills in Parliament this very afternoon. So rather than an On the Money question today, we're once again discussing our GB News campaign as inflation builds, tax rises loom and energy costs spiral. On the Money calls on the Treasury and the broader government. When it comes to energy bills, it's time to scrap the VAT. Grown-up conversations here on The Money with people who really know their stuff as ever. Yesterday, we spoke to Conservative MP Craig McKinley, who represents South Thanet, and Labour MP for Blackley and Broughton, Graham Stringer.
Fuel and having a warm home and hot water are not choices. These aren't discretionary spend. It's not like saying, oh, I want to buy the latest flat screen telly. You've got a choice about that.
Yeah.
You haven't got a choice about background heating in your homes.
We need to have sanity in our energy policies so that we protect our industry as well as some of the poorest people. I was looking at the figures. This is moving back onto people and pensioners, really. We had 2 years ago 63,000 surplus deaths in the winter. Now, not all of those are because of cold, but many of them are pensioners suffering from hypothermia. So on one side, we've got the poorest people dying because they can't afford bills.
There you have it, a Labour backbencher, a Tory backbencher saying that we should scrap the VAT on energy bills. Let's talk to Justin Urquhart-Stewart. He's a regular On the Money panellist, co-founder of Regionally. Bill Easterton, the Labour MP for Sefton up there on Merseyside, is also with us. Justin, scrap the VAT.
Of course.
It's not perfect,
No.
but what do you think?
I mean, look, these are exceptional times, exceptional circumstances. Now, therefore, you need exceptional actions to address it. It is not straightforward. We've seen those figures you had for the cost. The man in the street, the man's going to be on the street with costs like that in a few months' time. So it's not a matter of saying, well, it's a little price rise. These are very significant price rises. But more to the point, it's hitting the poorest hardest.
That's right.
So scrap that. How do you try and balance that out? Well, maybe you make it related to income tax bans or something like that.
right.
Some other mechanism.
Not a whole means test of everyone's income.
Exactly
You
right.
can do it via tax bans, can't you? Or you could even do it by the size of the bill. If your bill is up to a certain point, you're generally going to be from a poorer household, then you scrap the VAT.
So there's alternative mechanisms that could be used quite straightforwardly without having a whole new area of structure and be able to be seen to be fair. And that's the key issue here. So really you've got ministers or people in government at the moment saying, oh, well, we'll try and provide some support. This is not a normal problem. An exceptional problem requires exceptional action.
Well, we heard from Graham Stringer, Labour MP, yesterday. Let's go to Bill Easterton, who is Labour MP for Sefton up there in Merseyside. Thank you, Bill. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us again here on The Money. Your party is today trying to use an opposition debate to pressure the government on this very issue of scrapping VAT on energy bills. To what extent are your constituents concerned about this looming cost of living crisis in April and energy bills in particular, Bill?
Well, thanks very much for having on the show, and you're absolutely right. I'm going to be in complete agreement with everybody, I think, who's spoken. We have an opposition day debate, as you said. We are giving Conservative MPs the chance to vote for what was in their manifesto, actually, which is to remove VAT from domestic heating bills now that we've left the European Union, and to help those who are the poorest. It is true, as Justin was just saying, that those on the lowest incomes are hit disproportionately more by the amount they pay for gas and electric. This is a way immediately of helping them very much more. We're also, by the way, suggesting that you increase the warm homes discount from £150 to £400 a year and target and extend the scope of that to 9.3 billion people, including some of the poorest pensioners.
You'll know, Bill, you've got a good nose for public opinion. You'll know how constituents are feeling, not just in your constituency, but in many parts of the country, not least across what we now call the Red Wall, those seats which the Tories took off Labour back in 2019. This isn't an ideal policy. A lot of our viewers here on GB News say, why aren't you attacking the green subsidies, which make up 20-25% of our energy bills? I can't see Boris Johnson doing that between now and April, but I can see him maybe climbing down on this issue. What do you think?
Well, he's certainly going to be under pressure from anybody who meant what they said when they stood on the manifesto. We know he doesn't mean anything that he says, and he changes his mind all the time. But I think a lot of those Conservative backbenchers stood on that manifesto, and they meant it. They've got a chance this afternoon to vote with us and to stand up for ordinary working people and indeed many poorer pensioners. This will save £200 a year for people on people on the lowest incomes. That is an awful lot of money just by the VAT cut. We've estimated that we could be looking at £700 a year increase in energy costs. That's why we want to go for the warm homes discount being increased too. As you say, there are longer term solutions needed, but cutting VAT is the most immediate one and it's the most effective one.
Bill Esterton, Labour MP for Sefton Central on Merseyside. Thanks as ever for joining us here on GB News. Justin, it isn't just the political class that are talking about this cost of living triple whammy in April, is it? It's city people too, it's investors, it's retailers, it's business bosses.
It is, and of course this is just really the tip of the iceberg of all the issues that we've got in terms of structure for our power system. It's not operating in the right way. It was designed ineffectively, which is why we've seen so many of these companies actually going bust. They didn't know how to manage the price structure, how to buy forward and all those elements, and therefore merely by having a price cap, that doesn't really solve very much. It's the underlying structure that needs to be looked at.
We've really majored on cost of living and energy prices since On the Money started back in September, and you've been around pretty much since our first show, bar the shouting. There are issues, aren't there, like gas storage we've got to sort out in this country, like our long-term reliance on overseas energy providers, not least the Middle East and Russia, like how do we help businesses that are very intensive energy users? There's no price cap for them. But in the short term, in the here and now, if he wants to do something to signal to people that he understands this big squeeze, Boris Johnson could do this.
Well, there is, and particularly with regard to certain key businesses, those high power users, for instance, like in the metals industry and steel industry.
Yeah.
On Europe, they actually find themselves actually not having to pay so much extra cost. In fact, the government helps that. Here, we have to compete against them without any further support. And so that makes it even more difficult. It's a logical, easy way of going about this for corporates, not just individuals.
And it strikes me, Justin, a lot of these red ball seats, I was slightly teasing Bill Esterton there. I mean, what we say by the red wall, what we mean by the red wall these days is actually seats that were previous Labour that the Tories have pinched in December 2019 on the promise of getting Brexit done also, but on the promise of levelling up and so on. It's often in those red ball constituencies where you have those energy-intensive companies, so high energy prices aren't good for local jobs, including the jobs of local Tory MPs.
And so here's a classic issue. It was in the manifesto. You've got local elections coming up virtually at the same sort of time.
In May, yeah.
That's a key moment to try and do it. Now, whether he actually let's play it out like a fishing line until we get to April, then he say, yes, of course, I understand. Here's
so
my
he gets
life.
the maximum political bang for his buck, if you like.
Right on the vote.
But, you know, there will be this interregnum period, if you like, because Ofgem, the energy regulator, they are going to be announcing this higher price cap on the 7th of February. And people like me and you are going to be doing sums about what that means for ordinary people, gone up from 1,200 quid to £2,000. If he then waits for 6 weeks until, April when it comes in to cast his spell and say no VAT, there's going to be a lot of political heat generated.
There will indeed. Ofgem will now be probably called off-sod, I suspect, by then for 6 weeks.
Justin Urquhart-Stewart, thanks a lot for your contribution as ever. You're watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. After the break, we'll be crossing over to Cardiff, where Wales reporter Lily Hewitson finds out why supermarket giant Asda has gone back on promises to only sell British beef. And your emails are flooding in. We had so many emails yesterday on this Scrap the VAT campaign and many, many more today. We'll be reading out some of those shortly. Stay with us. You're On the Money.
Hello again. A bright day with some sunshine across northern parts of the country. Cloudier skies in the south, grey and drizzly for southern parts of England and South Wales. Because of this weather front clearing, it's a weak feature, but it is bringing a lot of low, misty cloud. Once it clears, sunshine is to the north of it, and high pressure builds in for the rest of the week across southern parts of the country. But a keen breeze will be felt across northern Scotland, along with a few showers for the north and northwest. Meanwhile, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, much of North Wales seeing long spells of sunshine. But further south again, that's where we've got the extensive low cloud, some drizzle, perhaps even some moderate bursts of rain for East Anglia and the southeast. 11 or 12 in the south, much colder further north, although feeling more pleasant, I suspect, with those sunny skies. Now, we're going to keep the keen breeze across Scotland overnight, as well as Northern Ireland. That will push in some extra cloud. Northern England seeing that cloud as well, but the cloud in the south clears, and as that clears and winds drop out, where we'll see an extensive frost and temperatures as low as -4, -5 Celsius in sheltered spots. Also, some fog patches, mainly around river valleys, sheltered rural parts, and they'll fairly quickly lift, I think, during the morning. Then plenty of sunshine for the southern half of the UK, a marked contrast compared to today, but cloudier skies for parts of northern England, especially the northwest, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, along with that keen breeze. It's going to be milder actually in the north, but a bit colder further south, with temperatures closer to average here. But again, with light winds, plenty of sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. And that's the way things continue for the rest of the week, actually. The southern half of the UK will see sunny spells by day, but increasingly fog forming overnight, and that fog will be dense at times, perhaps continuing through the day on Friday and Saturday in places. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, breezier and milder.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Now, Britain's retailers have said the soaring cost of living risks dragging down high street sales in 2022. Despite a bumper Christmas trading period and a recovery in retail spending during 2021, the British Retail Consortium is warning the looming combination of inflation, rising energy bills and planned tax increases, where have we heard that before, from April will curtail consumer spending power. Concerned about similar issues, the cut-price chain Wilko has announced it's to close up to 15 stores over the coming year, with a potential loss of around 300 jobs. The company, which currently operates 414 UK outlets, employing 16,000 people, said it was reviewing leases due to expire and would exit stores where favourable terms can't be negotiated. Stores affected include Bournemouth, Grantham, Rotherham, Llanelli, Sutton Coldfield and Cleethorpes. But here on GB News, as well as reporting on challenging issues, we like to report on good news too. And one good news story is the design and manufacturing firm Turtle Doves. Turtle Doves specialises in using recycled cashmere, the very finest material, and it likes to showcase British craftsmanship. And here is the CEO and founder of Turtle Doves, Graham Holbrook. Graham, nice to see you here on The Money. What really caught my eye about your business is that you started out trading on a market stall.
Yep.
You've now very much graduated from that. You've been around since, I think, 2008, 2009.
Yep.
And you use recycled cashmere. Tell us about it.
Yeah, just a little correction. It was my ex-wife and myself, Kate, who we founded the business back in 2009.
Very good.
So we take cashmere jumpers that have been thrown away. So here's one, for example.
So cashmere is I mean, you can feel it. It's beautiful quality. It's much softer than ordinary wool, isn't it?
Yes.
And a lot more expensive, typically.
Very much so. So cashmere jumpers in this country, they vary between, at the cheapest, £35, but can go up to 250, 300. And we take the jumpers from clothing reprocessors in the UK. There's quite a well set up infrastructure for clothing reprocessing.
Yeah.
And for those reprocessors that divide off the cashmere, we buy the cashmere jumpers from them and we wash them and cut them up and turn them into various products, particularly accessories, but baby booties.
Wow.
And other larger clothes. And
they're beautiful, little booties there, and hats. And so it's recycling. And you're part of a movement called slow fashion, aren't you?
Yeah.
Fast fashion is when in a factory, often in Asia, stuff will be run up very quickly. It will be sold on the high street here in the UK for a few quid. Somebody will buy it, if it's a T-shirt or a dress. They wear it once or twice, chuck it away. They won't even wash it a lot of the times. What's slow fashion?
Slow fashion it's all about care and respect for the material that you're using, the garments, the clothes that you're making, and particularly for the people that are making them. So most of our employees, they work from home. And the seamstresses particularly work from home. We have, in our factory in Shrewsbury, we have a very much a caring culture in the business. We allow particularly the mothers to go off and look after their kids and whenever they like, hardly any notice at all. And it's about sustainability, but sustainability means so many different things to different people, but it is all about respect. And we use every part of the jumper. There's no waste whatsoever left over. And
it really is, I must say, it's beautiful quality stuff that you're producing. So tell us how you made the transformation from flogging this stuff, to coin a phrase, from a market stall to having your own factory in Shrewsbury, and tell us about your retail outlets.
Yeah, so we are growing very fast, and we've now got in excess of 170 employees. We've added another 100 this year alone. Online has gone completely fantastic, particularly in the last year and the year before that, with people being at home. With lockdown, people are much more into buying British, and we are exclusively British-made business. And we have all our employees are well looked after, well paid. We believe very much in the minimum wage and escalation within the business, and to reward people for their hard work.
You're an interesting chap, obviously, because you've started your own business, but you did hold executive roles in Asda, in M&S, I believe.
Yeah.
What made you want to branch out, Graham, when you clearly were holding down very good jobs, and do your own thing? What within you, what within your personality made you want to do that?
Gosh, I mean, I think everybody would realise that running your own business, being your own boss, if you can deal with the stress, because it can be very stressful sometimes, is much more preferable than having to be answerable to somebody else. I had to travel around the country a lot to be away from my family for 10, 15 years before I moved into the business properly, full time. And now I just literally get in the van and I'm 10 minutes away from the office, and I have a superb team working for me. And it's a very creative...
And you don't have to worry what your boss thinks, because you are the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
On the other hand, it's down to you. You've got to make payroll. You've got to make sure the photocopier gets fixed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to make sure that all the taxes are paid and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I've got a great team of people who look after an awful lot of that. My job is to keep people motivated, and also to make sure that the business plan is sustainable. And, because we have had some stressful years over the years, and particularly, as you can imagine, we're a vertically integrated seasonal business, so cash flow in the winter is great. But then if you want to build up stock to meet the demand in the following winter, you've got to pay people to make the stock, and that could be 6 months before the money comes in. So what we're trying to do now is to make the business much more sustainable by moving onto other channels. So we've recently been supplying Harrods, and they're putting more and more orders in because things are selling really well with them. We're moving back into wholesale in a big way. And we are finding that we had an approach from another very famous large online retailer only this morning. Can't tell you who it is until that's all confirmed, but they're very much interested in what we're doing, and they want us to supply them.
In a nutshell, 10 seconds, what's your vision for the business?
The vision for the business, I think in about 5 years' time, at the moment we get through as much cashmere as would fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every year. And the more we can supply customers, because the gloves, particularly and other products we make, are really good for people with circulation issues. And we just want to keep growing, but doing it in a sustainable way.
Well, congratulations on your business. Very interesting to hear about it. And Graham Holbrook, CEO of Turtle Doves, thanks for appearing on The Money.
Thank you very much for having me.
Graham Holbrook there, a great British entrepreneur. Now, farmers across the UK have voiced their concern, their outrage, after supermarket chain Asda dropped its pledge to only source and sell British beef. The original decision was applauded by farmers, but this quick U-turn has left the UK's beef industry somewhat disappointed. Our Wales reporter Lily Hewitson spoke to Samuel Kurtz, member of the Senedd for Carmarthen West and South Pembrokeshire. He's unhappy about Asda's decision.
Because our produce here that we raise in Wales and across the UK is of such a high quality that it was great that a British supermarket back in British hands was supporting our domestic industry. But in only a few short months, they've realised that the cost implications for them is too much, so they've renegated on their promise. And that's a really bitter pill for farmers to swallow, who continue to see their costs squeezed at the bottom end. Fertiliser prices are going up, feed prices are going up. So for the farmers to not have Asda supermarket supporting them in the way that they had promised before Christmas is really disappointing. My father is a beef farmer. We've got pedigree Welsh Black and Hereford cattle at home on the farm, and knowing the chain of where that produce has come from, the hard work that goes in from the farmer, and trying to follow the produce through to its end destination, having a bottleneck, as it were, from Asda, just really struck a chord with me, because I know how difficult the industry are feeling and fearing at the moment. To have support from a domestic supermarket is exactly what they need. We as consumers have our obligations to go out and buy British, buy Welsh produce. It is the best out there. If we're looking for sustainability, if we're looking for environmentalism, British produce is the very best. So let's have our supermarkets on our side as well, on the side of farmers who are continuing to feed the nation.
Now, we did contact Asda for a statement, and they gave us a piece of paper, and it said this: "We know that it's important to our customers that the beef on our shelves has been produced to high welfare standards and is affordable. Unfortunately, Asda continued, the price of British beef has risen, and whilst we continue to work hard to keep prices as low as possible for our customers, these increases are significant. All fresh beef," Asda continued, "in our premium extra special tier is and will remain 100% British, and all of our fresh beef will be sourced from farms in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. This allows us to provide quality products which caters to all customer budgets." We'll bring you more on that story in the weeks ahead. You're watching On The Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, it's my Money Talks interview, and today it's with Luke Johnson. As the former chairman of Channel 4, he gave me his thoughts on the future of that television network.
I think my middle way would be that Channel 4, which is a wonderful brand, should be taken public. And somehow or other...
So listed on the stock exchange?
Yeah, I think that the proceeds should go to the government. Let the market decide what it's worth.
But 100% of it should be sold off?
Why not?
Luke Johnson there, that's coming up on Money Talks after the break. But first, it's the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, it's 1:33. I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date. The Deputy Leader of the Labour Party has accused Boris Johnson of hiding behind the civil service investigation into Downing Street parties. It follows her urgent question in the Commons over claims that 100 staff were invited to bring your own booze to a gathering during the first lockdown. Cabinet Minister Michael Ellis has told MPs the government inquiry into allegations of lockdown parties could be paused if the Metropolitan Police decide to investigate. Number 10 said it would not be commenting during the current inquiry. Asymptomatic people who test positive for COVID-19 in England on a lateral flow test no longer need a follow-up PCR test from today. But they'll still be required, of course, to self-isolate immediately. The aim is to free up testing capacity for those with symptoms. Doctors in the US have transplanted a pig heart into a human patient for the first time. The experimental surgery took 7 hours to complete in the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore, with medical experts saying it saved 57-year-old David Bennett's life. Surgeons say he's doing well 3 days after the procedure. It's estimated over 100,000 Americans are currently waiting for an organ transplant. A set of 12 stamps are going to be launched later this month to celebrate the Rolling Stones as the band marks its 60th anniversary. The stamps will feature images from some of their most famous performances over the years, including the 1969 London Hyde Park show, held just 2 days after the death of founding member Brian Jones. You're up to date at 1:35. I'll have more for you on all of today's main stories at GB News at 2 o'clock.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to GB News viewers and listeners. It's 1:37 and you're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Now, every day, On the Money includes a Money Talks interview, an in-depth discussion with someone who really knows their stuff. And today we've got a proper big beast entrepreneur. Luke Johnson's a former chairman of Pizza Express and of Channel 4 Television. He's raised finance and invested in numerous companies, particularly high street names, including Giraffe Restaurants, Feng Shusi, and most recently, Gale's Artisan Bakery. Johnson's combined his business career with a sideline in journalism. He's an experienced newspaper columnist too. But business is what drives him, and that's what we discussed as Luke Johnson told me why he's optimistic about the future of the UK.
Luke, you're well known as an investor in major high street brands like Pizza Express. You've been pretty critical of government policy during lockdown and particularly of the impact on the hospitality industry. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel now in terms of lockdown?
You know what, Liam? Despite the fear and the concern out there, I'm optimistic for 22. I think I can see a positive point at which restrictions will be lifted and the animal spirits of the entrepreneurs will be engaged again. To give him credit, although I've been highly critical of this government and Boris in particular, I think by holding the line against more restrictions, I hope he will be proven right. I'm sure it's not easy. There is this incredible safetyism in society now where you can't be too careful. Well, the truth is you can. An acutely risk-averse society is, in my opinion, a morbid one. And the truth of the matter is that we all die, and one of the cultural aspects, I think, of this difficult period is that we are being forced to have more of a reckoning about illness and death. And I'm not sure that's an unhealthy thing in a way. Obviously, we live longer than we used to, but the fact of the matter is we all die. By no means all deaths are a tragedy in reality. And if we over-sentimentalise everything, then I think we will be emotionally, morally, and economically poorer for it. And I think we need a good dose of realism. And I think to an extent, that is what Boris is attempting now by not saying we have to bury ourselves in fear constantly, we must run away and hide, we must focus on COVID to the exclusion of any other concern in life. We have to look at the 360 aspect of what existence means, and it means a lot more than just not dying. It means thinking about, for example, the age stratification of the illness. You know, I read this week that, for example, if you're over 75, you are 10,000 times more likely to die than if you're under 15. And yet by, for example, making children wear masks all day in secondary schools, we are forcing them, in a way, to pay a bit of a price to protect the very elderly. And I think after 2 years, the tide has turned and public opinion has shifted. Boris has noticed that. And therefore, I think the fact we are not taking the same approach as, you know, Holland and Germany and Austria and Italy and France and Spain and
compulsory
so forth,
vaccinations
all
in Austria.
that sort of thing.
Compulsory vaccinations.
I think that the Liberal Boris Johnson is making something of a comeback, and I think that recovery may well be reflected in our economy and our lives, and indeed our well-being over the coming months and years.
I agree with a lot of that. I agree that Boris's bet on Freedom Day in July 2021 and his bet not following Wales and Scotland with more restrictions, albeit way short of full lockdown, will be borne out, and he'll generate political capital from that. I share your optimism based largely on my faith in British entrepreneurs and the British workforce and their drive and skill. I do fear, though, Luke, in the coming months, a significant deterioration in the political climate based on rising inflation, cost of living crisis, rising energy bills, certainly in April when we have the combination of the energy price cap being lifted once again for households and those prearranged tax increases coming in.
I agree, and there's, you know, going to be bumps in the road. However, I think there is a lot of pent-up demand. There's a huge amount of savings. There is an awful lot of investment demand, a lot of capital sloshing around looking for a home. We are enjoying incredibly low levels of unemployment, which itself is, you know, helping to put money into people's pockets. And I think there will be a recovery of confidence because, you know, as I say, entrepreneurs are irrepressible. You can't put them down. I've been astonished at how, even throughout this last 2 years, new businesses have opened, people have set up their own business, there's been investment and innovation going on. And so, you know, I remain positive that there will be a good, strong economic recovery this year, despite energy prices, despite inflation. I happen to think the very worst of overall inflation has peaked.
Interesting.
I don't mean in the stats. What I mean is at the coalface, in the businesses I'm involved with, seeing price increases of products and services, I happen to think we may have seen the very worst of that. Now, it obviously depends on the course of the disease and, you know, government policies and all the rest. But I am hopeful that although the inflation hasn't been as temporary as a lot of people hoped and wanted, it's not a permanent new structural high level of inflation. We shall see, and I may be wrong, but that's what I'm hoping.
What always interests me listening to you, and you know, you're a prolific newspaper columnist. We used to share a page, didn't we, in the Sunday Telegraph. and yet you're somebody with a kind of journalistic platform, yet always your day job is business and serious business, investing in businesses, running businesses. What are you seeing at the business coalface at the moment, Luke, that's reassuring you and making you overall optimistic for 2022?
I think businesses are remarkably resilient and adaptable, and especially, smaller entrepreneurial businesses. They're flexible. The owners and the people running them will only ever be depressed or discouraged for short periods of time, and then their enthusiasm and their belief in a bright sunlit uplands returns. And, it impresses me how so many of them have navigated these really treacherous times. So, if you're in the travel industry, if you're in the pub or the restaurant business, if you've been in the entertainment business, and to an extent I've got exposure to a number of those sectors, it's been a disaster. And yet most of them haven't gone bust. Admittedly, government help has been critical. But also it's the irrepressible energy, it's the ability to find a way, and it's their belief that, somehow or other they will be able to cope and manage through, and that the good times will return. And I think they will. I mean, if you look at the long progress of human existence, almost relentlessly, things have improved in material terms. This is a temporary interruption in that journey. And we have a curious fondness for catastrophe and gloom as a species. But actually, we're also great self-improvers, and technology and human ingenuity can never be underestimated. And so I fundamentally believe that 22 will surprise on the upside, that we will cope with the adversity in front of us. A lot of it is very short-term and immediate, I think, and that things will get better steadily.
How do you think the business environment is for entrepreneurs like you at the moment? Obviously, COVID is still an issue, but let's hope, pray, keep fingers and toes crossed that we get through COVID in the coming weeks and months. I'm talking about the fundamental business environment, the tax environment, the macroeconomic environment, the environment in terms of skills.
Well, it's never easy. The truth of the matter is that, you'd always prefer less regulation, lower taxes, and fewer competitors. The fact of the matter is, you make your own luck, don't you? And the reason why people go into business is to control their own destiny. And if you don't have sufficient confidence in yourself and the talents you employ and work with to build something impressive that can endure, then you should get out of the game, shouldn't you? I think we're pretty good as a nation in terms of inventing and building companies and creating wealth. And actually we're surprisingly adaptable when it comes to, things like exchange rates or inflation or new legislation coming down the road. It's not going to be without its difficulties, from zero carbon to import costs rising to the consequences of Brexit, you name it. I think it depends a lot on what business you're in. So bluntly, if you're in something like travel, which has been really devastated, that's a tough road. If you've survived this far, I think you've done pretty well, and you'll probably manage from here on out, and eventually people will want to travel again and be allowed to. I think if you are in something like software, where working from home's a doddle, and to a degree the growth of e-commerce and things is to your benefit, cybersecurity, ever greater reliance on devices like the iPhone, then you're probably a winner out of this period, like the pharma industry. So, as ever, there are winners and losers, and those sectors will compound their advantages going forwards. And in some areas, like, for example, the pharmaceutical industry, we have real strength. In certain areas of science and technology, the UK is definitely still a world player. So, clearly we have to, invest in those sectors, back winners in those sectors. I remain of the view that Britain is going to do fine in the coming years.
One subject we often discuss on The Money is the future of the UK high street, particularly in our towns and our smaller cities. It's very close to the heart of a lot of our audience, Luke. We've obviously seen a long-term trend of a move away from physical retail towards online, and obviously physical retailers can and do trade online as well. But would you advocate the introduction of some kind of tax on the big internet giants, so you can get some kind of level playing field competition?
I would prefer a reduction in rates on retail premises.
So business rates, tackling business rates.
Because we tax retail property higher than virtually anywhere else in the world equivalent, and it is onerous and disproportionate. And then possibly putting it onto online e-commerce players like the Amazons. There's no doubt that that is, helping to hollow out our city centres, which
Exactly.
for not just economic but cultural reasons is very unhealthy. However, that isn't the only solution. I think we have to repurpose space in cities to, experiential rather than pure transactional retail in a traditional sense. And I think if occupation costs via lower rates and then obviously landlords being more flexible and adaptable about letting property, we could get to a position where space is cheap enough that, new startups can experiment and come up with new retail formats that can work, because the old traditional department stores, for example, is very tough. But there are new models out there that can deliver returns, can create jobs, and can bring life back to city centres that are challenged. And of course, we want to see our high streets thriving, places of work and commerce and healthy. And government can do their bit, but ultimately, again, it's down to the entrepreneurs.
You mentioned business rates. I just wanted to dwell on that for a moment, because it's rare that I can talk to somebody who really understands business rates on the front line to the extent that you do. This is a tax that's levied on physical assets of a business, whether or not businesses have made a profit, whether or not they've even turned over any revenue, got any money through the door at all. Labour say they want to scrap business rates. They haven't said how they'll raise the 30 billion odd quid that,
a lot of money
that they raise. But give Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, credit for at least saying that she wants to tackle business rates. Meanwhile, the Chancellor said he's going to have a review of business rates that's barely happened so far. How damaging is this tax on business, and how would you modify it?
Well, I wouldn't scrap it, because I don't think they will find 30 billion elsewhere. So I think that the answer is they have to do something perhaps along the lines you've described of introducing an online tax, which partly substitutes and reduce it. Because I think in a way, supermarkets, for example, they've traded pretty well over the last 2 years. The idea that they suddenly get this, windfall benefit, I don't really see that making sense. So, maybe smaller stores, maybe organise it via the size of the operator, I'm not sure. One of the worst aspects of business rates is that it's quite complicated in terms of calculations and things. But certainly it should be cut, because I think it is inhibiting the reinvention of our high streets and city centres. And, as I say, I think that has an impact in the provinces disproportionately. And it's, not just damaging employment and so forth, but life in cities and towns all around the country.
That was the entrepreneur and investor Luke Johnson, my latest Money Talks guest. You can listen to the full 25-minute version of that interview, plus dozens of other extended Money Talks interviews now on My Money Talks podcast, or on the GB News YouTube channel, or via the GB News app. Just before we finish our show today, we wanted to bring you in some emails. Many of you have been in touch with us about our Scrap the VAT campaign, of course. Adrian wrote in to say it's not just pensioners and the unemployed that need help with fuel bills. Working people do as well. It doesn't affect MPs one bit. They won't even think about the rise in their bills. Sharon contacted us to say, we're going to have to go back to wearing our coats in bed, just like we did when I was a kid in the 60s. And in the 70s, I was there. Tony says, why is there VAT on something that is essential? There's no VAT, there is no value on energy. It's a necessity. And Stephen says, it's all good scrapping VAT and green taxes on energy bills, but where will the money come from without it? My payments for my solar panels need to be paid for from somewhere. Keep your emails coming. A range of views as ever here on GB News. Write to us on GB News, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We want to know about your experiences. Our viewers are part of our show. You've been watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be back for more economics, business and consumer news at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Whether you're watching us on the television, watching us on your computer, listening to us on the radio. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On the Money.
Hello again. A bright day with some sunshine across northern parts of the country. Cloudier skies in the south, grey and drizzly for southern parts of England and South Wales. Because of this weather front clearing, it's a weak feature, but it is bringing a lot of low, misty cloud. Once it clears, sunshine is to the north of it, and high pressure builds in for the rest of the week across southern parts of the country. But a keen breeze will be felt across northern Scotland, along with a few showers for the north and northwest. Meanwhile, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, much of North Wales seeing long spells of sunshine. But further south again, that's where we've got the extensive low cloud, some drizzle, perhaps even some moderate bursts of rain for East Anglia and the southeast. 11 or 12 in the south, much colder further north, although feeling more pleasant, I suspect, with those sunny skies. Now, we're going to keep the keen breeze across Scotland overnight, as well as Northern Ireland. That will push in some extra cloud. Northern England seeing that cloud as well, but the cloud in the south clears, and as that clears and winds drop out, well, we'll see an extensive frost and temperatures as low as -4, -5 Celsius in sheltered spots. Also, some fog patches, mainly around river valleys, sheltered rural parts, and they'll fairly quickly lift, I think, during the morning. Then plenty of sunshine for the southern half of the UK, a marked contrast compared to today. But cloudier skies for parts of northern England, especially the northwest, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, along with that keen breeze. It's going to be milder actually in the north, but a bit colder further south, with temperatures closer to average here. But again, with light winds, plenty of sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. And that's the way things continue for the rest of the week, actually. The southern half of the UK will see sunny spells by day, but increasingly fog forming overnight, and that fog will be dense at times, perhaps continuing through the day on Friday and Saturday in places. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, breezier and milder.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And